Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, here with you for another episode of The Standard is the Standard. This is the longest running Behind the Steel Curtain podcast. We call it our flagship podcast. Hopefully, Lance Williams out on the West Coast will be joining me here shortly. In the meantime, it's just me and the AAF. If you're like me, when this is it's live right now. If you're watching live on YouTube, it's about 9 p.m. Sunday night, and the American Alliance Football League is on television right now. And I've got to be honest, and this is just a way for me to start the show. I really hope that this thing succeeds. I really do. And the reason for that is not only is it something to follow in the off season, but I also think that it's something that could be really good. I feel really good for these guys that are getting to play. Because when you look at the logistics of the National Football League, I mean, it's incredible how there's so many people that play college football. They want to continue playing. They might not be NFL caliber players, yet what do they do? You know, like, where do they go? I mean, this would be at least a great outlet. Now, I said this on our preview show on last Thursday night. So most of you probably heard it on Friday. If you haven't listened, check it out. I said that I could see a league like this league, the AAF and the XFL, even next year, potentially becoming like a minor league system for the NFL. And while the logistics aren't really there, because you look at practice squad players and reserve contracts and 90-man rosters, at least it gives these players a chance to make some money playing the game that they love. I know that the average salary or average contract for these players that are playing now in this offseason is roughly $250,000 for a 10-game season. That's not bad. When you think about that as compared to the NFL, it's kind of piddlings. But when you think about it compared to what they could be doing, it's pretty good, not too bad. So I hope that this works. And here's the kicker for me, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I hope some of these rules, maybe the NFL is taking a look and saying, I wonder how this, would look in the NFL. For instance, there's no kickoffs. They don't even kick the ball off. The team that just got scored upon gets the ball at the 25-yard line. If they want to go for two, if someone wants to go for, let's say, an onside kick, they have to complete a 4th and 12 play to retain possession of the football. So those that are thinking, well, there's no kickoff, well, what the heck are we going to do? That's how they get the ball. There's an extra official, which they call like the eye in the sky, where they can watch the play and they can always whistle down and say, hey, we need to look at this. The quality of play is not that great, but I think that the meaning behind it and how they're going about it, and keep in mind, if you are watching these games, I want to say I read somewhere that these players have only had less than a month together to prep for this. So it's not like an NFL team that's practiced all off season, been through training camp for months, at least a month and a half, played preseason games. These guys are just getting to know each other. So with that said, maybe you're checking out some football. I'm at least it's at least on in the background. So I guess I look at it and say it's better than basketball for me, because I just don't find basketball, at least the NBA, that intriguing. Now, I do want to say that to start the show, the live chat's going on right now on YouTube. If you're watching, I am opening the show up with a Q&A, because the last show that we had a couple people that were in the live chat saying, hey, when are you guys going to answer questions again? They like that segment. That's something we used to do regularly here on The Standard is the Standard. We used to do on other shows as well. And so I said, hey, let's do it. If Lance Williams is going to be able to join me today, which he was supposed to, but he must have been tied up in traffic or something like that. If he's not able to join us, I'll at least answer some questions. So if you have some questions and you're watching live, go ahead and fire away. We have some questions already coming in, so I'll answer those before we get into the nuts and bolts of this episode, which we're going to talk about the State of the Steelers address. That's what we're going to. That's the title of the episode, and that's what we're going to kind of take a look at. Where are they right now? I mean, you think of the State of the Union address by the President of the United States. They kind of talk about, like, well, what's going on in the country. And some of it's good, some of it's bad, but what's going on in the country? So that's kind of what we'll do today with the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2019 season. I'll want to talk about I guess you could say my very unconventional love affair with Mason Rudolph. I'll explain that later. And then we want to talk about the transition tag with Le'Veon Bell and things like that. So, okay, let's go ahead. Like I said, if you have questions and you're in the live chat right now, go ahead and fire away and I'll answer them. And we have one by Ryan McGrath. He said, what's going to happen with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell? And what can the Steelers get for them both? Okay, first and foremost, Le'Veon Bell, like I said, I don't want to get into too many of the logistics of it because we're going to talk about the transition tag later in the show. But Le'Veon Bell is going to be considered an unrestricted free agent, unless the Steelers decide to try to place a tag on him. And it's probably not going to be a franchise tag because the money would be a lot higher than they would want to pay. But if they just let him go, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, in which case the only thing they would get in return for him to leave is plain and simply a compensatory draft pick. Now, a lot of fans are really clinging to that comp pick. They're thinking, okay, we're going to get a third-round draft pick because of his talent level, because of what he's done in the league, the amount of time he's played. But you also have to remember that when you talk about comp picks, it's an equation. It's how many free agents did you bring in compared to how many free agents did you lose. So let's say the Steelers lose Le'Veon Bell and they lose a guy like Ramon Foster, and they might lose Jesse James. Those are some big name free agents on their list right now. If they were to lose all three of those guys, yet they go out and they bring in 4 or 5 free agents, then they might not even get a comp pick for him. So there's nothing guaranteed. So there's a lot of intricacies in this. I think the one thing to remember about Le'Veon Bell's situation, I'll reiterate this later in the show, is that a lot of this has never happened before. Never. I'm not sure if a running back has ever been franchise tag 2 years in a row. I could be wrong. If I am, please let me know in the live chat. Also, you have this transition tag coming with a player that just sat out an entire season. That messes with how much would he be paid under that transition tag. He would have to sign the transition tag just like he had to sign the franchise tag, which he never did. There's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to say that the Steelers are probably not going to get much of anything for Le'Veon Bell. It's just a different scenario. Now, Antonio Brown, well, that's a different beast altogether. And that's something that I talked about in my Steelers Burning Question of the Week. If you haven't checked out that episode, go back, listen. It's on YouTube. It's also on our audio platforms. And the question was, will the Steelers be without Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown in 2019? And the answer to that is, as of right now, who knows? Like I just explained Le'Veon Bell, I think he's gone. But Antonio Brown, if he's gone, it's going to be either they release him or they just trade him. So if they trade him, who are they trading him to? What are they going to get for him? This off-field stuff with the domestic violence type. It's not even a charge. There wasn't a charge. It was just an issue, but the NFL's looking into it. Does that decrease his stock? I don't want to bring up domestic violence and say that that's more, his trade value is more important. I'm not saying that at all. But what could they get for him? If they could get an early second-round draft pick and maybe another player, that's not a bad deal. I know a lot of fans would be really ticked off thinking that they need a 1. They need a number 1 for him. They need a first-round draft pick. That's what they want. It's just probably not going to happen. That's just the reality of the situation. So in terms of, I hope that answers your question. It's so much gray matter with both of these players that it's tough to really pin down. Here we go. Let's go with some other questions if we have one. Alrighty. Daryl asks, what position is the most important in the draft? Whew, that's a tough one. I think that if we were to narrow down positions of need for the Pittsburgh Steelers, entering the 2019 NFL draft, it's probably a toss-up between a few. The first, inside linebacker is definitely going to be on the list because regardless of what you feel about LJ Ford and what you feel about John Bostic, plain and simple, they're just not doing the job that the Steelers defense needs at that inside linebacker position. The Ryan Shazier is still really, really missed, and that's all in the organization in my opinion, because I just understand they've had an off season. It was one thing in 2016 when Shazier went down. I'm sorry, 2017 when Shazier went down, and you had to try to kind of put the pieces together on the fly. They signed Sean Spence. That didn't work out. We know how the season ended. But then they had all that entire draft, all off season. The only moves they made were getting John Bostic, and it just didn't pan out. This year, they have to have that as a priority. But at the same time, they could also use a cornerback. With Artie Burns kind of falling on his face last year, Cody Sensabaugh, I don't believe that he's the answer across from Joe Hayden. Um, I just don't know where that falls, though. If there's two really good players there, which precedes the other? And then I would also even say that edge pass rusher should be on that list. I hate to say that because they spent a first on Dupree, they spent a first on Watt. I mean, my goodness. I mean, but Anthony Chiquillo is going to be a free agent. They have no depth outside of Ola Adeniyi, and his name escapes me now, but he went to Western Michigan, got injured his rookie season. I'll think of his name. Keon Adams. There you go. Knew I would think of it sooner or later. Those are really their only outside linebackers. I could see them going for another pass rusher, maybe not in the first round, but in the early rounds. I think those three. If I were to kind of say inside linebacker and cornerback or 1A, 1B, however you want to put them, and then outside linebackers in there, you could say maybe a tight end. If Antonio Brown gets traded, where do you put wide receiver in that? That's another question. If Antonio Brown gets traded, does wide receiver become a number 2 need on this team? That sounds drastic, but I don't think it is because Juju Smith-Schuster, as great as he is and great as he's been in his first 2 years, is not that number 1 that's going to be able to beat anything. He's not a Julio Jones. He's not an Antonio Brown. Heck, I would even say he's not a Mike Evans in terms of just being able to go out and dominate. It's just that he's a different beast. He needs someone opposite him to be good. So I think that's my kind of hierarchy in terms of positions that are most important in the upcoming draft. But they need to find a player at a position that they think can come in and play at a high level right away. Would you say that happened with Terrell Edmonds, last year's first-round draft pick? Not so sure. He played almost out of necessity, though. Morgan Burnett, if he weren't injured as often as he was, I think that you would have seen those two roles flop. I think Morgan Burnett would have played more of a natural safety role on the team, and then Edmonds would have been like that dime backer that comes in. So, Daryl, hope I answered your question. It's really tough to kind of rank them out, but I think those are where I'm looking. So, Kenneth asks, who are legitimate cornerback free agents for the Steelers to bring in? We're going to run our cornerback article tomorrow, and that article is going to be, the free agent watch. And there's a few. Roby's one. I think that's from Denver. I'm not sold on any of these guys. I think for me, if I'm looking at cornerback, I'm okay if they decide to not bring in a free agent and go the draft route, because if history's shown us anything, it is that rookie cornerbacks, if they're that type of player, can come in and actually play well. Whether it's William Jackson III for the Cincinnati Bengals, who played well his rookie year before he got hurt, whether it is Lattimore down in New Orleans, whether it's I want to say his last name's White up in Buffalo. All these players have come in, and there's others. Marcus Peters for his rookie year in Kansas City. They have been able to come in and play well. And I think that the Steelers could probably get away with that. So check out that article tomorrow by Brian Davis. It's going to be the Steelers free agent watch, and it's going to be focused on the cornerbacks and who might be available. And we'll see what kind of how it plays out and see what maybe they do go after, but I'm not sure if there's going to be anyone out there worth it. Let's see here. See if there's any other questions before we move on. Hopefully we'll oh, here we go. Lawrence asks, do you think that we will trade Burns and Burnett? Well, I know that, and he's speaking about Artie Burns and Morgan Burnett. I know that Artie Burns will probably be back because he's under contract. He's still under his rookie deal. Now, I do think it's safe to say that Artie Burns will probably not, I repeat, will not have his 5th-year option picked up. But you know what? In my opinion, Artie Burns is coming off an awful, awful season. No one's denying that. No one's arguing that. And when I see a player like this, I almost think to myself, he's kind of playing with house money. I think that he can go into this season without much pressure on him. Why? Can it get worse than what it was last year? Probably not from a performance standpoint. So you go in, you say, look, throwing caution into the wind. He can't be a head case, which is what he was last year. He lacked he didn't have any confidence. He lacked confidence. He wasn't going out there thinking that he was going to make plays. He was trying to avoid messing up. That's a huge deal for a cornerback. So I don't think he's going anywhere. If anything, he just gets cut. And that's honestly, you hope that doesn't happen. I know Steeler fans aren't high on Artie Burns, but you want to hope that he resurrects his career and starts playing better. Because if he does, then that helps the team. If he doesn't, then maybe they do just cut ties with him. They could. I mean, there would be some dead money, but he's a rookie, so it's not going to be a huge deal. As for Morgan Burnett, he's still under contract. He's asked to be released. The Steelers would have to say, okay, we're going to give you what you want. At the same time, they don't have to. At the same time, they can seriously say, they could basically just say, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep you, and they could trade him. Trade is still on the table. So, all right. Chris asked, talk about Joshua Dobbs versus Mason Rudolph. Okay, Mason Rudolph. I know that Lance is going to be joining me here in a few minutes. I want to save my love affection. I don't want to say love affection. That's kind of. I am enamored with Mason Rudolph. For a guy that has done absolutely nothing, I am infatuated with anything I read about Mason Rudolph. Like, I see someone does an article like recently, Chris Adamski of the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, tip of the cap to him. He had an interview with Mason Rudolph, and I've read every second. I was looking at him, reading what he thinks and all this stuff. And I don't know. It's going to be an interesting battle. I'll tell you that, because Joshua Dobbs has experience. He has tape outside of the preseason now. Whether it was the one pass he had against Baltimore in Baltimore during that win when Roethlisberger went out, he had the wind knocked out of him, or whether it's in Oakland where he actually had a little bit of a larger sample size, so to speak. Mason Rudolph doesn't have that. He wasn't even active, I don't think, once this season. He sat, scout team guy. I think he's an extremely intelligent football player, but so is Joshua Dobbs. It's going to come down to who plays better, period. Who plays better in this situation, this circumstance? I think that I don't want to say I have a rooting interest in this. I hope they're both going to make the team, but you wonder who's going to be the primary backup behind Roethlisberger. That's going to be the key. So it's going to be one of those training camp battles that everyone's going to be focused on. I think you can expect Tomlin to have the quarterback situation very similar to what he did last year, where Rudolph started one game, Dobbs started the next, and then the others filled in. They already signed a third quarterback, so you'll have like one guy will get the first quarter, the other one will get the second quarter, and then you get the two other camp arms or one other camp arm in there for the other second half. So it's going to be really, really interesting. That's a training camp battle. Put a little asterisk by that one or a star next to that one. It's going to be something to watch. Let's see here. Going through here. Some people are chiming in on the free agents, the cornerback free agents. Roby, I said, Darquez Denard, which is funny because Denard was someone that everyone was upset they didn't take when he was drafted. I want to say that might have been in 2015 or something like that. So, but like Kenneth said, the list is not sexy. Rob Nash asks, how many more years do you see Big Ben playing? It's tough. I think that the Steelers are going to try to give him a 3-year extension, but they're going to have to be creative because right now it's all about salary cap space. They have about 18, give or take, $18 million in cap space, and 14.5 of that is due to Le'Veon Bell deciding not to play last year. Blessing in disguise. And so everyone's said, well, they've got that 18.5. They're going to have to make sure that they sign other players and all this stuff. And I get that. You have to remember that they're probably not going to sign anyone that's going to get $18 million up front in their first year. So keep that in mind. But they're also going to have to understand the fact that the Steelers, if they renegotiate Roethlisberger's current year, his current contract, it's going to free up a lot more space. I want to say he's due something around $26 million this year. So even if they were to cut that number in half with a restructure of his deal, then you're going to have potentially almost well, not doubling, but you're going to come close to adding a lot of salary cap space. That doesn't even count in the fact that the salary cap's naturally going to get larger every year. It's about $10 million on average that the salary cap increases. So the Steelers are going to have some wiggle room, but the question at hand is how many years will Ben Roethlisberger play? I think they give him a 3-year extension. And I think that he will probably play. And see, if you're extending him on his current deal, which has 1 more year, so that's 4 more years, I think he plays 3 of those 4, depending on the success of the team, injuries, stuff like that. I still think that if at this stage of his career, if Roethlisberger were to win a championship, he might just walk off into the sunset, a la John Elway, his hero, his idol, why he wears number 7 in the first place. And so with that, I bring in my co-host who, hey, better late than never, Lance Williams out on the West Coast. Lance, welcome to the show. This is the standard is the standard. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I see you laughing in the background. Hey, man, I apologize, listeners. I really got it wrong. We live on opposite coasts. When Jeff wrote, I think, we said 6:15 or 9. Jeff wrote 9:15. I literally thought 9:15. So
Well,
anyway, but
you're I
I
thought
don't know why.
well, we honestly get the East Coast, West Coast numbers messed up a lot. It's not a big deal. Did a little Q&A here, Lance, to fill some time before you join us. I knew you'd be joining us eventually. And the question at hand is, how long do you think Roethlisberger is going to play? How many years?
How old is Ben right now? 37?
He will be 37 in March, I believe.
I give him 3 more years. I think he plays till 40. The way I would design his contract, I would design it similar to the way the Denver Broncos did with Peyton Manning. I would give him a lot of that just in salary. So if he fell off the cliff physically, I could waive him with no salary cap hit. So I would give him a 3-year deal for probably like $60 million, all of it guaranteed. I'd give him $20 million per. And it'd be all salary, no signing bonus. So again, if he gets hurt, I can waive him and free up $20 million in salary cap space. I think that's the way you do old quarterbacks.
Yeah. I love the question from Ron. He asks, is Lance late for everything just like Antonio Brown?
At least I wouldn't write my name on my car.
But would you show up in a helicopter?
No, I'd show up in a PETA coat, just like he did. PETA fur.
Okay. All right. So, Peter, that's nice. I spoke about it, and I wanted to start. I'll start the show off with this because I know you want to talk about the transition tag. And we're going to get into that. But I wanted to talk about my very odd obsession with Mason Rudolph. I kind of tease this a little bit. It is odd. I don't know. He's never even played an meaningful NFL snap. I guess for me is when I was before last year's draft, when we were obviously you're covering quarterbacks because with Ben Roethlisberger is teasing potentially retiring, this becomes a draft need for the Steelers. And so we at the website behindthesteelcurtain.com, if you've never been there, check it out. We did a lot of breakdowns on quarterbacks, and there were some that you knew were not going to be there when the Steelers drafted in the first round. And, guys like Baker Mayfield, even Josh Allen, who is skyrocketing up the charts because of his big arm from Wyoming, all those players that were drafted early. But there was one I was like, you know what? I think this guy's going to be around. That was Mason Rudolph. The more I watched his tape, even though it's the Big 12, there's hardly any defense played in the Big 12. I still like the way he handled himself. I liked the style of quarterback he was. He reminded me of a very pro-style quarterback. He was the opposite of Lamar Jackson, where Lamar Jackson is an athlete. He makes plays in a multitude of ways. That's not Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph he's going to get the ball. He's going to know where to go with it. He's going to read the defense well. He's very smart. I just think that the first time since I became, obviously, in the Ben Roethlisberger era, they've drafted a lot of quarterbacks, whether it's Dennis Dixon, Brian St. Pierre. They brought in quarterbacks, whether it's Charlie Batch to back up, Byron Leftwich, all those guys. This is the first one that didn't feel like he's there just to be another arm. I felt like they drafted him and said, this is a guy that could be the next quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be great. I'm not saying he's the next Ben Roethlisberger. I'm just saying felt like this is the guy that could be the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I never felt that way about Josh Dobbs, but I do about Mason Rudolph. And so I've been, and maybe it's because, it's the person that you don't know much about. You kind of are just so curious. You're so curious as to what would it look like if he were the quarterback and actually had an opportunity and all this stuff. We don't know what that looks like. At this point, we know what Joshua Dobbs brings to the table. And I want to see what Mason Rudolph can do. So my question now, Lance, is how do you think this battle, and we'll talk about this at length, I'm sure, as training camp gets closer later in the summer, but it's going to be Dobbs versus Rudolph for the number 2 next year. And what are your thoughts on how that plays out? We've seen Joshua Dobbs. Did he show you enough to think that it's going to be status quo in 2019?
The one throw in Baltimore was great, but he stunk in Oakland. So no, he hasn't shown me enough. He will have to compete for the number 2 job. But when you think of Mason, he's the temptress. He's the what was it, Jezebel and Solomon? It's not Solomon or Samson. Delilah. He's Delilah. He's Delilah. He's that temptress. He's that flirt that winks at you, and your mind goes, where is it actually greener on the other side? Essentially, the reason why you're enamored with him is because you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and you're an NFL fan. We're always enamored with the unknown, particularly the backup quarterback. The backup quarterback is the best position in the National Football League to be in. It's that position where it's eternal hope. Was it hope springs eternal?
Yep.
Is that the saying? Mm-hmm. That's the backup quarterback in the National Football League. But guess what happens? When the backup plays, you want the starter right back in. That's what happens with backup. So it's amazing that you keep thinking of this guy. I mean, we need to maybe get a therapist or something. Because, man, the guy hasn't played one snap. Is it that bad?
No, it's just curiosity killed the cat, man. That's all it is. I mean, it's just one of those situations where, I know people in the live chat right now are saying that, he's not Ben's replacement. He was just another guy. I mean, they traded up in the third. It's just the third round. I understand that. It's not like they made a big trade in the first round, but they traded up in the third round to get this guy. Don't tell me they didn't like him. I mean, don't tell me they didn't.
They could have picked a bad corner in the third round.
They're really good at that.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, so
they got away from their bread and butter.
Bread and butter, and that might be a tease topic for the future for my show.
No.
But yeah, because they're really awful at that. They're about as bad as picking corners as the Patriots are at picking wide receivers.
Yeah.
The Patriots are pretty awful at that.
I guess the one thing that I hate, and people, they talked about this leading up to last season. And, remember preseason last year, everyone was thinking there's no way they're ever going to cut Landry Jones. And here we are. Landry Jones is unemployed. But everyone said how Mason Rudolph was struggling under center. I don't have the numbers in front of me. How often was Ben Roethlisberger under center in 2018?
Man, Ben was living in shotgun.
Exactly. I mean, so if Mason Rudolph played his entire college career, which he did, in the shotgun, okay, what the hell? I mean, I'm pretty sure he could take a goal line snap and hand the ball off. I mean, that's not... You know what I mean? I just don't buy that. I don't buy that at all.
The only thing with Mason in the offseason last year is it showed the fragility of the ego of the quarterback who starts for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who somehow felt threatened by a guy that had taken no snaps in the National Football League. Dude, you're 36. You just figured out that working out was a good thing. I mean, what do you think the organization's going to do? You wait till year 15 and you're like, maybe I should lift and lose some weight in the off season. Riddle me that. That's like a great thought. Like, whoa, I'm going to get in shape and lose some weight. Maybe it'll take some stress off my joints. Whoa, I'm a genius. Yes.
Well,
that guy.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. Because I think about this and I say, my goodness, it just didn't make sense when he was so insecure about them drafting him. He felt threatened. I think he felt what I felt, that all these other quarterbacks they ever drafted, including Josh Dobbs, was nothing more than to just be hey, you're the backup. That's it. And now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. They did what? They're drafting my replacement? What? People were saying replacement? I'm not helping this kid. Screw him. And I was like, oh, geez, here we go.
Whose arm is bigger? Yeah, he's got a bigger arm than me. Yeah, like, geez, come on, guy. Put your arms away.
Okay, so we'll be talking about that battle I not ad nauseum, I'm sure, as the season progresses and we get closer to training camp, and that's going to be a really good training camp battle, I think, between those two for the backup position. But nonetheless, you want to talk about Le'Veon Bell. Now, I had a question. Very first question was, what will the Steelers get for Le'Veon Bell? And I tried to explain to the best of my ability how the Steelers are probably not going to get anything for Le'Veon Bell. And it all comes down to like the transition tag. And are they going to use the transition tag on him? And what does that mean? And would he sign the transition tag? And are they just going to screw with him essentially? So correct me if I'm wrong, Lance, but the transition tag, for those that don't know, is essentially just the right to first refusal. So what this would mean is that if they put the transition tag on Le'Veon Bell, that any team in the National Football League is permitted to give him an offer sheet to play for their team. When they do that, the Steelers have X amount of days, hours, whatever, to actually then match that offer or say we're not going to match the offer, and Bell would then leave. The reasoning behind the Steelers potentially having put the transition tag on him is in hopes that he won't draw the interest in the free market that he thought. Let's say his best offer is, I don't know, $9 million a year, and the Steelers say, well, we can actually give you that, where we want to keep you, and they would give him that contract. There are people that are touting that the Steelers could do a sign and trade type nod, nod, wink, wink. That's going to go against the collective bargaining agreement. That would definitely raise some eyebrows. I don't think that's going to happen. But Lance, unless I messed something up there, I don't think I did. What would you do if you're the Steelers? Are you going to put the transition tag on Bell, or are you just like, you know what, dude? Peace. It's been real. Appreciate all the help. You screwed us over last year. Let's hope we get a comp pick for you in 2020.
Well, I think they'll get a comp pick for sure. I mean, they'll get a comp pick. What you will get, I'm not certain.
If you put the transition tag on him, you will not get a comp
pick. Yes, if you put the tag on him, you will not. If they don't tag him, they'll get a comp pick. I mean, a lot of people are writing that they think it could be a third or a fourth. So that's the most conservative route. I think the smart route is putting the tag on him. You put the tag on him, and which gives him the ability to negotiate a deal with another team. I think the Steelers should and then match that deal and then try to trade him to get more compensation than a third or a fifth compensatory selection. Because if he doesn't sign it, or let's say it takes a little bit of time for all of it to work out, let's say, because the one caveat about it is if you transition tag him, you have to have the cap space. So you lose that cap space at the start of free agency. So let's say it takes maybe a week for all of it to work itself out. He doesn't get a deal. He doesn't get an offer from somewhere, whatever, blah, 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 blah. It takes a week. They could just remove it. They could just remove the tag because he's not going to sign it. They can just remove the tag. He becomes a free agent and you get your compensatory pick anyway. So what you're doing is you're hedging your bet that there is a big offer out there for Le'Veon Bell early in free agency, right? If the deal is too big, you can't match it anyway. But if you want to match it, you can match it and presumably trade that team, trade Le'Veon Bell to that team and get more compensation than you would get from a normal compensatory pick. So you can do it. They can do it. I think that's the clever way and the sly way to do it because you can just remove the tag anyway. He won't be a Steeler. This is merely just a ploy to try to get more compensation.
I'm curious about because if he were to sign his transition tag, you're going to have issues with, and this is something that was brought up in the live chat, potential signing bonuses and things that. But I'm pretty sure he would have to sign the transition tag, and considering he didn't sign the franchise tag last year, I doubt he would sign the transition tag this year. So I'm just trying to think. You're
I mean,
saying that if you're the Steelers, you would do that. You would put the
yes,
transition tag on.
yes, yes. I'm assuming he is not going to sign the tag for sure. He doesn't want to come back. He's not going to sign a tag, and you're also rolling the dice that a deal is going to come in for him very early in free agency, which won't tie up your cap space for whatever free agent moves that you want to make.
See, I don't like it. I don't like that deal at all because I there's going to be someone that overpays for him. There's going to be someone that's going to give him a deal that the Steelers can't match, and he's going to walk, and then you're not going to get anything. Now, I understand that the comp pick, it's an equation. Talked about this earlier in the show in regards to it depends on how many free agents you sign and all their experience and game
No,
snap.
no. Think of it this way, Jeff. It's just you have to match it. You
No,
just
no.
match the deal. You just match it. Like if you're going to do it, if you're going to transition tag them,
So you're saying
anyway.
if the Jets say we'll give you whatever you want and then some, the Steelers are just going to match it, and when they don't,
you match the deal. As long as you have the cap space, you can match the deal. Because
I don't know if they're going to have that much cap space.
So because they got the 14.5 million for him, you presumably the Jets aren't going to give him a deal where it's probably going to eat up 14.5 to 15 million in cap space. So they're going to have the cap space. All you do is match the deal, and then you try to trade them. If you can't trade them, you just remove the cap. You remove the tag. You get all your cap space. He becomes a free agent, and you get the compensatory pick anyway. It's just a maneuvering.
No, I know.
That's all it is.
I guess sometimes I look at it and say, sometimes there's a cancer, you just got to cut it out.
I get that.
It sounds stupid, and it might not be the best business model, but sometimes you've had a guy that's been hanging over this franchise's head for well over a year now, and I think sometimes you just have to say, we're done. Like we're just done, and go wherever you want. Just go. Just get the hell out of here.
But you know what the move feels like, and Steeler fans are going to hate it because I know
feels like they're going to try to screw him over.
No. I was going to say this because Steeler fans, I know they hated I said that I was rooting for the Pats. I know they hated that. But if they transition tag them, this feels very Patriot-like. Like this feels like the type of maneuvering that the Pats would do to try to maximize the compensation that they're going to get from an asset that they're going to lose anyway. And they're completely in control of whether as much control as you can have, assuming he is not going to sign the transition tag.
Yeah.
And we can pretty much, that's 99.9999999 that he's not going to sign a transition tag.
No, you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's he and Antonio Brown alone are just I don't even know. Don't even know what to say anymore. Period. I mean, it's just there's just so much going on there with the team and the drama, and you hear all these reports that are coming out about they're being compared to the Kardashians, which I hate, but at the same time, it's reality.
Well, she does have the one Kardashian is worth 900 million. So hey.
So, okay. I do want to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because you weren't on. I don't want to talk about the Super Bowl, the game. That's over a week old news. I want to talk to you about kind of what you mentioned in your show. Yeah, I said it. Lance was rooting for the Patriots to win the 6th Super Bowl and tie the Steelers record for most Super Bowl titles in NFL history. And if you haven't listened to that, you can go back on our audio platforms or on behindthesteelcurtain.com. Go to the BTSC on demand link. It's right there. I want to get a feel for you as to if the Steelers were to make a change, and you talked about this in your show, about maybe this could kind of spawn some type of change within the Steelers organization. Like, what exactly would that? Like, you're talking about culture change, right? How you handle your business, how you go about your business, correct?
Yeah, I'm talking about taking a step back and taking a fresh look at it, and maybe thinking, are there some things that we need to do differently to maximize this Ben Roethlisberger window, to or just to compete better for championships? I mean, we have a team up north, that's got 2 foot, they got 2 feet in the Steelers' booty. So something's got to change. So yes, absolutely.
So what's going to change? Well, elaborate a little bit. What would you change? You're Mike Tomlin, or you're Kevin Colbert, or you're Art Rooney II. What are you changing?
Maybe you move up in the draft aggressively. Maybe you just don't pick BPA. Maybe you just go for need, just flat out go for need. Maybe you're more aggressive in trying to get free agents. Like, look, we know there's some good free agent linebackers out there. CJ Mosley, why don't maybe you go after CJ Mosley. You're more aggressive in the free agent market. You're more aggressive in the draft. Maybe you do fire Tomlin. Maybe you get another voice in here because the team has been led astray, run amok, and bamboozled and hoodwinked. Maybe all of that should be on the table. So what I'm just saying is be aggressive, put everything on the table. Everything's open to change. Everything's open for reevaluation. Everything. This is a team that's gone from the AFC Championship to a first-round playoff exit to no playoffs. So whatever the way's not working. So it's about time to look at the way a different way, to come up with a different way, because that team up north is trying to get to 7. And the way they're going, they probably going to get to 7, like you said on the burning question, that you think that they're going to get to 7 before the Steelers are. And how bad would it, it felt terrible waking up, them being tied. How bad would it feel next year if you wake up and they got 7? And and they're having the Sports Illustrated article has Tom's the super goat. It's already got Tom as the goat on Sports Illustrated. Come on, man. So, hey, I'm pissed. They should be more pissed than me.
So would you say that cutting ties with Antonio Brown and just cutting ties with Le'Veon Bell would be some of the drastic changes that you're mentioning in regards to culture change?
How about discipline the guy? I mean, because if you cut Antonio Brown, that's not going to make you better, right? How about you discipline the guy and hold the guy accountable? Period.
Well, that ship has sailed, though.
Yeah, that ship has sailed. So maybe that's where it is.
I mean, hindsight's always 2020. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so an aggressive move is you do get rid of Antonio Brown, but in free agency, maybe you target a wide receiver.
Yeah.
You go get a wide receiver. You draft, you target, you're aggressive in the draft. You move up and identify a wide receiver, maybe 15 selections from where you're at, sacrifice a couple of picks and go get that wide receiver. I'm just saying something has to change. It's not working.
Okay, no. I understand. Now, Saturday, there was an article run on the website. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. It was basically stating why the Steelers shouldn't be mortgaging the future for an all-in right now mode. I have a feeling you disagree with that sentiment. Am I right?
I absolutely disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is, what's the hardest piece to find in football?
Quarterback.
How many quarterbacks have they had in their franchise that has won them Super Bowls?
2.
What's the odds you go to find another one anytime soon?
It's already on the roster, Mason Rudolph. I'm sure.
So if Mason Rudolph's the guy, don't extend.
You walked right into that one, man.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Great delivery. Bang. Get ping. So with that being said, look, you look. It's got to be an all-in mentality right now, right? All-in mentality. Because if it isn't, it goes back to my other, I said it. You don't give Ben the long-term deal, and you rebuild this roster from ground up so you can compete for a foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So, look, the quarterback's the hardest piece. Unfortunately, I think they're saddled with that guy till he quits.
Well,
They got to maximize that.
I'm all about trading draft picks. You know why? Because there is no guarantee in the draft. The Steelers are the
Absolutely.
perfect example of there's no guarantee in the draft. Just look at Senquez Golson. Just look at El Busto. Just look at look at Artie Burns. Look at Bud Dupree. There is no guarantee, and so fans are always so protective of picks. I mean, they cling to them like they're their own children. Oh
like
my gosh,
Mason Rudolph.
I would no, watch your mouth. I would never. They would say, "Oh, I'd never get rid of my kids. I'd never get rid of my children. I love them all so much." You know what? The last time they traded up in the draft, you know who they selected? And I'm not talking about third round trade. I'm talking about in the first round. You know who they selected?
Antonio Holmes.
Well, okay, they did, but prior to that, but Antonio Holmes turned out to be a great player. He was an idiot. Troy Polamalu. Anyone going back and regretting trading those picks for Troy Polamalu?
Absolutely not.
Hell no. If there's a guy that you think, and this is what I said earlier in the show while you were pulling an Antonio Brown, is that if there's a player that you know can come in, because I have full confidence, especially at the cornerback position, that they can actually find someone that can come in and play at a high level from day one. Inside linebacker might be a little bit dicey, but in regards to the cornerback safety position, there are players in this draft that you could say plug and play. Rookie, doesn't matter. Let's go. It's been proven by every NFL team except for the Steelers the past 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, you look around the league, defensive play. My gosh, how many Buda Baker for the San Diego Chargers? Could you imagine him on the Steelers this past year instead of Terrell Edmonds? He was available. Didn't take him. Did not take him. So we'll get into the evaluation aspect of things, but I am all about trading draft picks. If you want to trade your second and a third round pick to move up in the draft and get a guy that you know, not you hope, that's not a project, that's not raw, that doesn't have a lot of skill and talent, that just needs to be honed in. We're talking about a guy that's ready. Do it. Pull the trigger. Make the move.
So now you asked me about what are some things to do to change the way things are being done and to be more aggressive. I mean, we've talked about quite a few defensive misses. Who's making those selections? Tomlin and Colbert.
Well, do you throw Butler in there too? Because Tomlin can't go everywhere. I mean,
I'm saying the drafting of these guys.
Well, yeah, but the input comes from the scouting department, from the coordinator, from everywhere. Now, they're the guys that are pulling the trigger on the pick, but they're listening to their coaching staff and the scouting department as well.
Maybe you sweep out the scouting department. Maybe you identify guys that are being tasked to make these defensive observations. Maybe, it's like something has to change. You know the definition of insanity. You're putting similar guys in this position to do similar things. It's not surprising that they find Cam Suttons of the world.
Well, for me, they need to, if they're going to you look at the 70s teams, everyone wants to go back to the 70s. Who was the drafting genius? Who was the scouting department genius that totally changed the landscape of the Steelers roster? I know you know this answer.
Yeah, it was Bill Nunn Sr.
Exactly. And what did he do? He went into historically black colleges and he found these prospects that no one else was finding. Sometimes you gotta dig deeper in your scouting, and you can't just look at the main conferences. I mean, hell, no one ever heard of Joe Green's college when he was drafted. Yet,
was it Abilene Christian? Was it Abilene Christian?
No, his was Texas
Southern. I think Texas Southern.
Yeah. But it's still it's one of those situations where the Steelers need to be aggressive, be intelligent when they're being aggressive. And I think it can pay dividends because I still, we're going in the Steelers preview show, which airs Thursday night on YouTube and it's pretty much Friday on our audio platforms. We've been going position by position, and we just wrapped up the offense. Now, granted, if Antonio Brown does not come back, if he's gone via trade, that changes the landscape completely. But if he does return, and I think there's I'm actually leaning more towards him coming back now, especially with the domestic issues going on off the field. There's really not a lot of holes on that offensive side of the football. And so that would make me to believe that they could really target defense and really get themselves ready to go for the upcoming season. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. North Texas was Joe Green, by
Yes,
the way.
yes, 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 yes.
North Texas. Thank you to Bo for saying that on the live chat. All right. I said this is the headline. This is the title of the episode today is the State of the Steelers Address. I wanted us both to do this today, and that is here we are sitting in February of 2019. The new league year is a little under a month away, and just like the State of the Union for the President of the United States, you talk about where the team is right now currently, good, bad, and different. Where can you see it going? Where do you want to see it going? We've talked a little bit about it, but do you want to give your address first? Do you want me to go first?
I'm going to go first.
Go for it, my man.
And I think the Steelers' needle is pointing way up. You know why I think it's pointing way up? It's because of your guy, Mason Randolph.
Mason Rudolph. Come on, get his name right.
No, it's Randolph, isn't it?
It's Rudolph, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Okay, man. I even looked it up on the internet. See, that's how positive I am. I thought it was okay. Well, no. In all seriousness, I think the Steelers right now are treading water. And I think it's organizationally. I mean, it's hard for me to say it's trending up because the chemistry seems to be in total disarray. You have the best wide receiver in the National Football League asking out. You have free agents asking out. It just seems like they're in disarray at the moment. So it's hard for me to say that the needle is pointing up. However, they have a quarterback that's a top 7, top 10 guy. They have Juju Smith-Schuster. Antonio Brown is still on the roster. They have a young TJ Watt. They have a really good front 7. You've got Wreck-It Ralph to it. You've got Hargrave. So there's some pieces there. We've seen them beat the world champion, the eventual world champion in the New England Patriots. We've seen them beat some very good teams. We've seen them go into New Orleans and play some very good football. But the problem of being this close is that you're actually really far away at the same time. And it's pretty weird, right? As well as those bounces could have gone for the Steelers, they didn't. So I think what is the Steelers organization, they have to really take the step back and view themselves as a team that's not a playoff team, not a team that was close. And if some balls bounced their way, they could have been in the dance. I think the thing that concerns me the most is they continually underperform against bad teams. And I'm not really happy with how Mike Tomlin has managed this roster and allowed this roster to become the Keystone Cops, Kardashians, whatever you want to call it. Those things don't give me a good feeling. So when I think about the state of the Steelers, I think the Steelers are standing still, which means if you're standing still in the National Football League, you're trending downward. So I'm not in a good place as to where they are. I know they're close. I know all that other stuff. I just wish that the coach could get his hands around all of it. If he had more control of what's going on in the inside and what's going on and all this stuff, I would feel better. I would just say it was a bad season. But between him, the coach, the quarterback, the wide receiver, and the chinchilla coat, I mean, I just don't get a warm and fuzzy feeling about it. And I feel probably worse than ever about it because the Patriots have 6 Super Bowls. And now, my brother is absolutely obnoxious. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
All right. I can't disagree with much, but here we go. I'll go with my State of the Steelers address. My fellow Steeler fans, this is, in my opinion, the darkest days of the Steelers franchise in my life. Now, I have not lived as long as many. I was not around for the 70s Steelers or anything like that. But I cannot remember a time when the Steelers, from an organizational standpoint, all the way down to the players, have been absolutely ridiculed, lambasted, any other adjective that you can think of in the media, around the league, the perception of this team right now is as low as it's ever been in my time. Every Steeler fan around the globe is probably feeling the same exact thing, and that is not much hope. Antonio Brown wants out. Le'Veon Bell's probably gone. Roethlisberger's in the waning years of his career. You've got Mike Tomlin. No one wants him anymore. Everyone thinks that Art Rooney II doesn't know what he's doing. And yet here we are. I guess sometimes for me, in my opinion, it takes something drastic for change to take place. And if there's ever been a time where it's been drastic, it's been this offseason. And it's been the whole last season. And maybe, just maybe, the Pittsburgh Steelers will start to see some change coming in 2019. Will it be as drastic as everyone wants in regards to the firing of Mike Tomlin or Kevin Colbert or anything like that? No, it's not. But at the same time, it might be drastic enough that you see a legitimate change in philosophy, a legitimate change in preparation, and you see a legitimate change in how the team approaches things like free agency and the NFL draft and how they handle their players and how the Mike Tomlin saying of everyone will be treated fairly, but everyone won't be treated the same goes out the window. I guess when I look at this team, they're at the bottom of the barrel. Maybe not from a skill standpoint. Actually, I know not from a skill standpoint. They're not at the bottom of the barrel because they're still a very talented team. But I think that at this stage, I feel like there's only one way for them to go, and that's up. I just don't know how it could get worse. They missed the playoffs. They were 7-2-1 and missed the playoffs. Their star players went out. At this point, could it get worse? Missing the playoffs, can it get worse than that? I don't think so. I feel like it can only go up. And if the Steelers are smart, they play their cards correctly this offseason. I feel like this is a team, I still feel this way, is only I would say 3 or 4 players away from being right back where they were in the AFC Championship game. You can't tell me that the AFC has ran away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, there's the Patriots, but you can't tell me that the Chargers, the Ravens, the Chiefs even, the Steelers can hang with all of those players. Might it look a little different next year? I think it will. Will their approach be a little bit different next year? I hope it will, especially offensively. But I think that it takes something drastic to really spark change, and I think that this offseason, as embarrassing as it's been for the entire organization and for the entire franchise and fan base, that's been the drastic change. That it's been it's been the drama, and it's been drastic enough that I think you'll actually see some change. So I think Steeler fans should expect change this year. And if they don't see any change, then shame on us for thinking that there will be. But ultimately, there's only one way to go, and that's up. So that's my state of the Steelers address, Lance. What do you think about that?
That's interesting that you think that they're at the lowest point that you've seen.
Can you think of a lower time? I was born in 1983. Let's try to remember when I was cognizant enough to remember the team. So don't bring up the 1984 season when I was 1. Don't remember that team very well.
Right.
I mean,
the coach you remember first is Cowher, basically, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You're a coward. You're a Cowher power, baby.
The first team that I really, really remember was 1994. The team that went to the AFC Championship game and lost to the Chargers when Neil O'Donnell threw a ball in the turf to Barry Foster in the end zone in the rain. That was the first team that I really, really remember.
Yeah, you were full on Cowher power. You're a Cowher power.
So you really power.
I mean, you didn't see them be. I mean, I went through a decade and they were they were terrible. They were just.
Well, you got to think that this my state of the Steelers thing wasn't about the result on the field because they've had bad seasons before. Hell, it was 2003. They were 6-10, but that led to Ben Roethlisberger in 2004.
Right.
It's the other stuff that's embarrassing. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, the other stuff is frustrating, and not to because I have I said it. I think I'm going to do about this topic. But yeah, the other stuff is frustrating. And the reason it's really frustrating for me, particularly, is, and I'm sure for you, is everyone has other stuff, right? We don't consume the Steelers to hear about other stuff. We all have our other stuff, right? We've got kids, we've got wives, we've got families, we've got jobs, we got stuff. We all have other stuff. We don't come to sports to get that stuff. We want to watch football.
Yeah.
We want you guys to deal with that other stuff. We want to deal with the stuff that we want to watch, and that's the football on the field. That's what we want to consume. We don't want to consume your drama. We got drama. I didn't buy the NFL ticket to hear drama.
Yeah.
I bought the NFL ticket to watch football. So, I think that's the ultimate frustration where I come from. I'm like, man, I'm too old for this drama. Guys sound like kids, teenagers. I got kids that I have drama with that's similar. So why do I want to deal with some grown man millionaires with chinchilla coats with meaningless drama? Man, go ball.
Yeah.
That's all I want to consume. I don't, so that's my frustration with it. And I get your point as to why when you bring all that into it, it just takes the enjoyment out of it, which makes it feel like it's at its lowest point, because we consume these games for enjoyment. This is things we were passionate about. They bring us a lot of enjoyment. You have memories around it. You like watching your football team, but you don't like hearing about drama with the team. It brings you down. So I get why you're at your lowest point.
Yeah, seriously, I was thinking about it as I was getting ready for the show tonight. I was like, man, I can literally not think of a time when things were this bad within the organization. You could bring up
Bubby Brister.
Well, I remember Bubby and the Mike Tomczak era, and I remember those guys, and that was rough.
Kent Graham.
Kent Graham, gosh, that was awful. It's not about the production on the field. Like that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not about that. It's about all the other stuff. Let's have less TMZ and let's have more ESPN highlights. Like that's what I want. You know what I mean? So
to your point, Jeff, and I think you make a good one right there, is that I think Steeler Nation and Steeler fans can accept a losing season.
Absolutely.
I think we get it, right? We understand how hard it was to win 6 Super Bowls. Don't come often unless you're that team up north that I don't want to say their names. But if you're giving an honest effort and you're playing hard-nosed, physical, tough football, I think Steeler fans can live with the results. What Steeler fans don't want is all that drama and you lose. Like, if you're going to give me all that drama, you best believe better win. You can't give me all that drama and not make the playoffs. Like what? Like all of that, and you still didn't make the playoff? Come on, man. You showed up in a helicopter and you didn't make the playoffs? What you gonna do? Show up in an elephant next year and go 4-12? What? Like what's gonna happen?
You know what he would say if he were here and you were asking a question. He'd say, "Well, it wasn't because of me," because that's who he is. That's who he is.
I got 15 touchdowns.
Exactly.
I got 15 touchdowns.
It's all about me. It's all about me, and that's the biggest difference from when you watch like the 2005 highlights and you watch the America's game on the 2000 that Super Bowl 40 and Super Bowl 43 team. Man, they were such a tight knit group, very cohesive. And you just look at what happened last season, where they raided Le'Veon Bell's locker. You got Bud Dupree running his mouth, and all of these. He wasn't alone. That's just who comes to my mind first. You got Antonio Brown walking off on the team. The last time that happened was the guy that you don't mention his name anymore in Monday Night Football in Tennessee, where he just said, "I'm out," and walked off the field.
Yeah, man.
Did that start at all? Was that like the Kickstarter for all of this? I have to go back and think.
That guy just quit at halftime. Like, I don't know.
But I said this in my show, the Steelers burning question this past week, when I answered the question, will the Steelers be without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell in 2019? And I want to get your answer to that in a second. But I said, my gosh, look how far the mighty have fallen. Let's talk Killer Bees. Everyone remembers the Killer Bees, right? Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant, Chris Boswell. Let's recap. Ben Roethlisberger's hoping for an extension. He'll get it. He'll stay. Antonio Brown wants a trade. Le'Veon Bell's probably going to be a free agent. Chris Boswell couldn't make a kick to save his own life. And Martavis Bryant is indefinitely suspended from the NFL. Yeah.
You know what that sounds like? Busted, bad, and broken. That's what the Killer Bees stand. That's what that stands for. That's bad. That's bad. That is really bad.
The Killer Bees, that was all everyone was talking about. The Killer Bees, man, the Killer Bees, and the Bumblebee jerseys were back at that time. And, you know, I said it to you before on a previous show. When they had all that talent, they didn't win a damn thing. Because
Chris
guess what?
Hogan, Danny Amendola, PED man with the long beard.
Well, and to me, it comes down to when you had the Killer Bees, were any of them defensive bees?
No.
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 It wasn't Artie Burns, trust me.
You had PED man running away from Timmons.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Jeff. Let me ask you just real quick while we're kind of just wax poeticking at this moment in the show. Why don't you think football fans give a rat's about PEDs? Because think about it, right? In baseball, if somebody wins a World Series that got suspended from PEDs, let's say they hit 17 home runs in the World Series and they win the MVP in the World Series, you're not going to get the question right afterwards. Well, should this person be in the playoffs? Or excuse me, in the Hall of Fame? People have actually legitimately asked the question if the bearded super guy up in New England should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And this guy got waxed for PEDs this year.
Yep.
Nobody. Why don't you think people care at all?
I think it's twofold. First is that I think football fans feel that that more players do it than they know, and that it's just he got caught. Essentially, is number one.
Right, doing business. Essentially,
status quo. And then the second thing is that the NFL does not take as hard a stance on it as Major League Baseball. Now, it hasn't always been that way. But Major League Baseball has really cracked down. Now, first-time offenders, you're suspended for 80 games, and if your team makes the playoffs that year, you can't play. So let's look at 2 years ago, Pittsburgh Pirates outfielder Starling Marte, right after the World Baseball Classic, was busted for steroids. I'm talking old school steroids. I'm talking he was sticking a needle in his butt cheek. Steroids, not the new stuff. That's just a pill for him. So he was suspended for 80 games, and if the Pirates had made the playoffs that year, even if they would have gone to the World Series, he was not able to play. So that's a strong statement by the league that we're not going to tolerate this stuff. You're going to have to sit out for half of the games, and if your team makes the playoffs, you aren't going to be a part of it. So let's rewind it now and think, okay, let's say this happened to Edelman. He would have had to sit out 8 games, half of the Patriots schedule, and in the playoffs would have had to watch at home with the rest of the fans.
Yeah. That would stop PED usage.
The NFL says you get 4 games.
4
games, which a lot of people might say, wow, that's a nice little break. I appreciate that. It was real fresh for the rest of the season.
Exactly. And the media guys are like, oh, we don't care. We're going to talk about your journey from being a 7th-round draft pick to a PED user who eventually wins a Super Bowl MVP. Yeah. You're an American hero.
Yep. On the Ellen DeGeneres show, shaving your beard.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
You're not making that up?
No, that happened. That's real life. Yeah. And I think, too, is that PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, is such a broad-based term.
Yes.
You know, there's so many different substances that fall under that umbrella that a lot of people, you never really hear, this dude was taking human growth hormone, or this dude was taking straight-up anabolic steroids. Or, you know, and in baseball, if you take Adderall, that's considered a performance-enhancing drug. That's not really going to help you in the weight room and adding muscle and bigger, faster, stronger, but it's considered a performance-enhancing drug. So because they have these loose terms and they're not being super specific, which I think is hysterical, because for gambling purposes, they're super specific with injury reports every single week. You can look at the hockey. If a player has a leg cut off during a game, they say he has a lower body injury.
Well, that's true.
That is true, yeah. But in the NFL, Mike Tomlin has to say if Ben Roethlisberger has a hangnail on his left hand because he might have missed a portion of practice. Ben Roethlisberger was a partial participant on Wednesday because he had a hangnail, and we had to go get some nail clippers to take care of it. So that's why.
Yeah, I mean, when I used to do my baseball show, I used to always refer to PEDs as performance sustaining drugs, not enhancing, because baseball is so skill specific. Nothing you take is going to make you Barry Bonds. I mean, Barry Bonds is Barry Bonds, whether he sticks a needle in his butt, takes 4 pills or whatever. People just have that ability or they don't. What
Well,
they'll
yeah.
do for Bonds is they'll keep Bonds healthy late in August so he can hit a home run.
You bring up a good point. Number one is that steroids, like Terry Bradshaw used steroids in the 70s, it wasn't for performance enhancing, it was for recovery. And
Yeah.
that steroids help the body recover a lot faster. However, I'll give you the perfect, you say they can't turn you into Barry Bonds. I'll give you one baseball player, and I don't want to turn this into a baseball discussion, but one player that when he started taking roids, completely different player. Look at Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he ever took anything.
Yes.
He was an MVP in Pittsburgh before he went to San Francisco, and he just decided that he couldn't take not having the power numbers of McGuire and those guys, and so he had to start taking it in his mind. I still think he would have hit enough home runs regardless, but he had to start taking it. Now, Kenneth in our live chat says, I don't think PEDs help you catch a football or pick up a blitzer. I completely disagree with that because whether you're taking human growth hormone or you're taking anabolic steroids, which is artificial testosterone, you are going to be bigger, you're going to be faster, you're going to be stronger, you're going to recover better, you're going to be better in every single phase. So yes, picking up a blitzer, as long as you're in the right position, you will be stronger in that scenario. You will pick up the blitzer better. Now, will it help you catch the football? No. Will it help you create separation with newfound speed? Yes. So I personally think that if there was one player from the Steelers that got away with it for a long time, although it wasn't illegal at the time, it was James Harrison. I guarantee that dude was taking HGH before the league made it illegal. And that actually happened within, I think, the last 5 years, is that when they finally banned human growth hormone from the game. So this is, I could talk all day about steroids and sports and stuff like that. I'm very passionate about the fitness stuff, you know that, and so that kind of hits right at home. But so yeah, Dan, there you go, Julian Edelman. He's all around. He's giving out Grammys, which he did tonight.
Oh wow, that's why I don't watch. That's why I don't watch those shows. That's disgusting. That's just disgusting.
People will also turn the other cheek if they like the story.
Yeah, and you win.
See, people didn't like Barry Bonds. They thought he was a jerk, and he was a jerk.
Yeah, likability is huge, and winning.
Yeah, if you win and you're likable, the media will embrace you, and the fans will embrace you no matter what. Yeah. But if they think you're a jerk and you cheated and all, it's not gonna fly. No one knows Julian Edelman. That's why. I mean, who's this guy?
They do now, and you see that. People, his people are smart. They're trying to take advantage of the 15 minutes and get him out there. They know his time is up soon in the National Football League, because when he's in man coverage, he can't get open. Yeah. He's a scheme guy. But it is what it is. I don't want to talk about those guys ever again.
So, all right, real quick before we call it a show, I do want to get your answer to my burning question this week, and that is, who do you think the Steelers will have? Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, one or the other, both neither, this year in 2019?
I thought that was your burning question last week.
As was. I want to know what you think. What's your answer?
I think they won't have either one.
Okay.
I think they'll both be gone. I think Le'Veon Bell's gone for sure.
So do I.
Whether they put the tag on him or not, he's gone for sure. And I think with the allegation about his ex-wife or one of his baby mamas, I think, I'm sorry, I don't mean to reference her like that. I mean, it just comes out.
Yeah, I get it. We get it.
Yeah. One of them other ones that he has. That's probably even worse.
You're just digging the hole deeper.
Yeah, I'm just digging, man. I'm glad we don't have an ombudsman like at ESPN, because I'd be in trouble.
Yes, you would.
Yeah, I think they're going to move him. I think if they can get a good deal, I think they'll move him. I think if somebody came to them and said we'd give you a second, maybe a second and a third, they'd move Antonio Brown. I think they move him in a heartbeat and and find a receiver in free agency and draft the guy. Um, Hopefully they find a running back to maybe turn it back over to the running game to support the older quarterback. But no, that won't happen.
That makes that makes too much sense.
That's because Randy Fichtner is Ben Jr.
Yeah, you mean Ben Roethlisberger.
Yes, let's throw it 50 times a game. So I don't think either one of them will be there. So let me tease a topic for your burning question this week.
I don't have a burning question yet this week.
so how about this one? And maybe the fans on the live chat can chime in on this. What was the biggest factor in the Steelers' loss this year? Distractions or turnovers?
That's a good one. I'll roll with that.
Distractions or turnovers.
All right. And why don't you tease your show for this week as well?
Oh, my show, I'm teasing my show about the Steelers should go out. I'm just giving you the title. Yeah, I said it. The Steelers should sign Kareem Hunt.
Oh, boy.
As an unrestricted free agent. They should sign him.
Now, I want fans to know that might be listening this long on the show, if they listen to the whole thing, that Lance is not saying this stuff just – I think some people – I've seen some comments on the website that he's like doing this for clickbait. Lance is not going to put out a show that he does not believe what he's saying. Period. I've been doing this show with him for like 4 or 5 years now. If he says it, he means it. Doesn't mean he's always right, but if he says it, he means it. He's not sitting around his house thinking, how can I get some clicks this week? Let's sign Kareem Hunt. No, he actually thinks it might be worthwhile for the Steelers to sign Kareem Hunt.
And the reason I think it's worthwhile, I think Kareem Hunt is arguably the best back in the AFC. If you add him with James Conner, that's a two-headed monster with Jalen Samuels.
Absolutely.
You put those 3 running backs in the Steeler backfield, you can take some throws off Ben Roethlisberger. You go from 45 throws a game, possibly to 35 throws a game. And even if you keep it at 45, those 10 extra throws are easy throws where he's not going to get intercepted or put the ball in harm's way. Those are easy run after the catch, yard after the catch throws that keep the sticks moving. And if you throw that 3-headed running back monster against anybody, we can rock and roll and protect a defense that is still going to be very much a work in progress in the 2019-2020 season. If you can add that guy to the mix, that's what I'm talking about. You want to get a 7th ring? Bring that guy in.
As a fan, I could get behind it. As a website editor, good Lord, help me now. I thought Michael Vick was bad. That would be unbelievable on a multitude of levels.
And Vick gives you precedent too. So,
God,
Vick gives you precedent. So,
no, you're right.
I mean, and this ain't, sometimes it's going to take some guys that aren't choir boys to get it done. And Lord knows we didn't have choir boys in Pittsburgh in the 70s. We had a guy that shot at a guy in a helicopter with a shotgun.
He shot a police car too.
And he shot a police car.
Yeah. So, and he spent the night in prison, was bailed out by Art Rooney Sr., and then charges were dropped.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like,
pretty sure that would not happen today, but Pittsburgh it did then. Well, in Pittsburgh, you never know.
Well, Pittsburgh was a city where Steelers were driven home by cops.
Right, yeah.
We got to get you home, sir, so you can suit up on Sunday.
Well, and I've always said that if social media and if every single person had a phone with a camera on it, had that in the 70s or even in the early 2000s, could you imagine? Like I've always said, man, could you imagine Joey Porter with the Twitter account back when he played?
Oh, my goodness.
The Jeremy Stevens stuff would have been so tame compared to what he would have actually said.
Oh, my goodness. Peasy? With social media?
Uh-huh. Let's think about that.
The Peasy TV. Oh, man. Let's tune in.
So, all right. Well, I think this is a good place to stop. So make sure you check out our YouTube channel. If you didn't know we had one, go to youtube.com/ or look for BTSC Steelers Radio. Just type that in the search engine and then you'll find us. Subscribe, like. We appreciate all the help in that fashion. Also, find us on all of our audio platforms. That's iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, which is my favorite. All you have to do is to go into any of those search engines, just search Steelers. We will be one of the first results that you get back. It's the behindthesteelcurtain.com logo. Click it. You'll get all of our content. It's not just this show. It's Lance's Yeah, I Said It. It's My Burning Question. It's the Steelers Hangover and the Steelers Preview. 5 shows a week. So subscribe. We appreciate it if you also would give us a rating. The higher the rating, the better we get promoted in terms of people finding the show. So 5 shows a week. We appreciate that. And as always, behindthesteelcurtain.com, at least 8 articles a day all throughout the offseason. Check it out. We'll see you next Sunday. Another episode of The Standard is the Standard.